Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh! The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa.
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
He picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score! And we'll see you next week, but until then, as always, go Chiefs. Hey, welcome into the Arrowhead Addict podcast. You are here for the OG Hour. Patrick Allen with you guys, as I am every Thursday. And it seems like as I am every Thursday, I am once again Verderamless. The man is just all over the place. He's there's a big party happening at Sports Illustrated this week, so he's going to be doing that. But don't worry, he's allegedly rumored to be back next week. So we'll have the gang back together. But don't worry, we got a great show for you today. We're getting ready for another game against those pesky Cincinnati Bengals, and we're going to dive all into it. So shout out to all of our members. I see some of you guys in the chat already, Evan and Slothy, Phantom. Appreciate everybody who's watching on YouTube. If you want to do me a solid, go ahead and hit that like button. Let's get some Chiefs fans in here and let's start breaking this thing down, because it's a big game this week and I've got a lot to say about it. I think you're going to find it interesting, I hope. So before we do that, I don't usually do this at the top of the show, but I want to dive in to some reader reviews. And the reason I want to do that is because I would love for you guys to help me out in helping Arrowhead Addict podcast achieve, I believe what we're going for is 400 reviews on Apple Podcasts. 400, preferably 5-star reviews. And one of the ways that we solicit these reviews from you, of course, is we try to create great content. Another way we do it is we ask, you guys ask us questions and we read them on the show. We really appreciate it. It really supports the show. So I'm going to lead with some of these questions this week, and I'm throwing a complete curveball to producer Richard, but it's something that's been in the back of my mind, and I'm just going to go for it. So he's quick on his feet. Don't worry. Let's kick it off with this one's from the end of August from our guy Treats74. Says, the best Chiefs podcast by far. Thank you for the great shows. You're the only Chiefs podcast I listen to, and I don't take for granted the golden age that we are lucky enough to live in. Every show is packed with great new information brought by a great host. I look forward to hearing you guys every time. Keep up the great work. Go Chiefs. Treats, my man, my woman. I don't know what your sex is, but you're awesome. You're amazing. Thank you. Next up is Zeke689, #1 Chiefs podcast. I started listening to you guys last season, and you all are by far my favorite Chiefs podcast. Very knowledgeable and entertaining. Thank you for all you do. Go Chiefs. Thank you, Zeke, for your review. It makes a great deal of difference to us. It means a lot. Really, it does. And then the last one here is from Sven Jennings from September 4th. Superior podcast. I've been a lifelong Chiefs fan growing up in Southwest Missouri for 42 years. My family and I just moved to enemy territory in Colorado. Godspeed, Sven. That's rough. But I'm happy to report there are many Chiefs fans here. I started listening to Arrowhead Addict the week of the 13-2 game during the 2021 season. The post-game show was epic, and I haven't stopped listening to you guys on a regular basis since. I absolutely love the knowledge of the game and the history of the Chiefs that is given, and the skill of keeping each episode entertaining. Keep doing what you guys do. Arrowhead Addict is the dynasty of football podcasts. Such a kind comment. So I was lucky enough to be at the 13-2 game. And if any of you have been around for a long time, you may remember me maybe slightly drunkenly popping into the podcast from my phone in the parking lot, actually from my boss's phone in the parking lot, to join in the podcast and enjoy the celebration, because it was unbelievable. What an experience to be at that game. I actually sat next to Josh Allen's dad. Think about that. That was weird. I was in a box and they were right next to us and we were staring at him the whole game. And I believe I shook his hand on the way out. So that's the kind of guy I am. But Sven's got a question. He says, with the start of the new kickoff rules, this 24-25 season, do you guys have concerns about unexpected losses being added to any other unexpected losses? Because let's admit it, the Chiefs seem to always lose to a bad team. And then there's the playoffs. I'm a bit nervous that this rule is going to interrupt the three-peat chances. I think that's a really valid concern, Sven. But what we saw last week, and we actually saw this kind of not everywhere, but across the NFL, was teams just, they don't care. They're just kicking the ball through the end zone anyway. The punishment, of course, is that if you do that, the team gets the ball on the 30 instead of the 25. But I think teams feel that there's a serious risk because it's almost like a running play and a much higher chance for there to be a run back. And so they would rather give up those 5 yards, at least early in the season, than kick it short and try to run down there and make the tackle inside of the 25-yard line and gain field position that way. Field position is really important, but I just think teams like the Chiefs are looking at this rule and they're like, look, if other teams want to be the guinea pigs and kick it short, great. We're too good to give the other team a leg up. We've got a great defense. We don't care about this 5 yards. So we'll see how it all plays out once all the data's in. But I think the Chiefs will probably keep kicking it through the end zone. That's what I think. I'm not sure what the advantage to giving a team a chance to score on you, which is what it is. Because what do you gain, right? Like maybe like they'll probably end up about the 25 anyway. And I haven't had a chance to look at the data to see like where teams that are like, what's the average return? But they're probably going to end up around the 25-yard line anyway. What's the benefit? Maybe you get down there in time. Because remember, they don't have a running start. They can't start running until the guy catches the ball. So like, you're not going to get down there and tackle them within the 5-yard line because the ball lands in the drop zone. So what's the benefit? Maybe you get a couple of yards, 5 at the most, if you get down there and make a tackle. So it doesn't make sense to me. And I'm glad the Chiefs approached it the way that they did. Sound off if you guys are in the chat, by the way, since it's just me today, especially love to try to get to your thoughts as we run through this thing. Shout out to my guy Slothy for the super chat. Thank you. Says speed. That's about it. Cam Taylor, Britt unworthy. Bold statement for someone named after Pat and Trev's significant others. That's really, I didn't think about that. That's really funny. We're going to get into that. It's absolutely crazy what's going on with the Bengals, and I've got a lot to say about it. All right. So again, Arrowhead Addict podcast. We're going to preview Chiefs Bengals. Hit that like button if you're watching on YouTube. Let's get into some of the news here. Kyle Van Noy of the Baltimore Ravens called out the Chiefs training staff. As you know, during the game, he kind of went low on Patrick Mahomes, was trying to sack him, ended up under Patrick Mahomes, and then one of his teammates also fell on top of him, and he ended up face down, and his face mask got like pushed up and a pad, and he hurt his eye, like his orbital bone or something. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. And so you may not know this, but like when you're on the road, you usually get checked out by the other team's training staff. Like they don't bring a bunch of doctors and stuff, but they've got some trainers, I think, on the sidelines, but they don't, like the Chiefs have like 30 doctors on staff on game day. It's crazy. So the teams aren't bringing all those people with them. They get treated by the medical professionals there. So Van Noy was complaining because he has a podcast, I guess. And he was complaining on the podcast because he said the Chiefs took an entire quarter to check him out and he thought it was unprofessional. And he alluded to the fact that maybe the Chiefs didn't check him out because they didn't want him to get back out on the field. Look, man, we just don't know, right? Like we don't know why it took as long as it did for the doctor. They needed an eye specialist, which the Chiefs apparently have on staff, to get down to the locker room to check this guy out. I have no idea why it took long, exactly how long it took. I don't know anything. I just know what Kyle Van Noy said. The Chiefs have not commented on this. I do not believe for a second that the medical professionals for the Chiefs, the trainers, doctors, everybody that is there would purposefully let a guy be injured and let him sit in a locker room and wait because they wanted to try to help the team win. These people are professionals, medical professionals. They've gone to school for this. This is a field that they're passionate about. And if you've been watching NFL games long enough, you see it all the time. You'll see a guy get hurt on the field, and you'll see the opposing team's trainers run out and kneel there to help them, especially when they're serious injuries. They run out to help. They care. They care about anybody. That's their job, is to take care of these players. It's insulting to every one of the people in the Chiefs medical staff, in my opinion, for Kyle Van Noy to even suggest for a second that that they were unprofessional and that they let him wait on purpose. It's bullshit. I don't know. And it doesn't seem like he knows. He knows he waited. That's what he says. He waited for a long time. And I'm sure that there was a good reason for why it took them a while to check him out. I just don't buy it for a second. And if he's got a problem with the care he received, instead of going on his podcast and blowing all those people up, why don't you be a man and talk to them? Like, go talk to them. You're there. Go in after the game. Have a conversation with somebody. You want to talk about unprofessional. Like, these people are trying to take care of you. So, I just don't like it. I'm not trying to invalidate his experience, but come on, man. And the reason I'm going down this road is because the Ravens are a bunch of crybabies. Like, that's it, right? They're just a bunch of crybabies. All they did after the game was whine and cry. You had Lamar Jackson, who I generally like, and I love watching play football, gets up at the podium. I think it was still a touchdown. I still think it was a touchdown. Bro, as clear as day. Maybe he couldn't see down on the field. I understand he's upset that they lost. Come on, man. What are you doing? And I'm even keeled on this, man. When Patrick Mahomes got pissed off after that Kadarius Toney penalty last year that cost Travis Kelce that amazing play, I said on this show, I wish he hadn't have done it. He shouldn't have done it. It's like the one time in his entire career he just lost his cool, and who could blame him with the way his receivers were performing last year? He's a human being. I did a whole monologue on it about how the Chiefs were becoming the villains and that Patrick Mahomes just, had a human moment. But he's got a track record of being an absolute professional before that and since. And so, yeah, we all slip up sometimes. And he was just frustrated. And frankly, Patrick Mahomes, the reason why I think he was so upset after that game at the refs wasn't because he lost the game. I think it was genuinely because he was so mad on behalf of Travis Kelce. Travis is a close friend of his. And he said it after the game that, you take a play away from a guy like that. It was an all-time NFL play by Travis Kelce. And Patrick Mahomes knew it. He knew how hard that was, how special of a moment it was. And so, of course, he was frustrated that because his own stupid receiver couldn't line up right, and because he's a good leader and he couldn't take it out on Kadarius Toney, at least publicly, he got mad and he took it out on the refs. So it's like even Patrick Mahomes' kind of worst moment after a game came from a place of him just being an awesome dude, in my opinion. But the Ravens, man, after this game, Isaiah Likely sitting up there talking about how if this is the best the Chiefs have, we'll see him in the playoffs. Bro, you just lost to them. This is the worst the Chiefs are going to be all year long. They don't even have Hollywood Brown out there. By the way, you guys never beat the Chiefs. You have one win against Patrick Mahomes with Lamar Jackson. And the only reason that happened is because Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumbled the ball. The Chiefs were moving into field goal range at the end of that game. You guys were going to lose that one too. I mean, for goodness sake, like, go win something, Baltimore. It's the first game of the season. You lost a tight one. It was a great game. Everybody played hard. You lost by inches. Use it as motivation to win the next one. Don't go in front of the media and be a bunch of crybabies. And then a week later, days later, you got Kyle Van Noy on his podcast whining about the training staff. These people who work really hard and genuinely care about the players. Get out of here, man. Like, just give me a break. Yeah. So that's what I have to say about. That's what I say. The Ravens are like the Bengals, but without any wins to show for it against the Chiefs. Really. Shout out to Daniel Akers, who's been one of our members here at the podcast for 11 months. He's a starting 11 member. We have different levels, you know. He says, woohoo, 11 months. Van Noy irritated about a specialist not being there in 30 minutes. Yeah, I don't know if they had to get a specialist to come in, and that's why it took so long. I know they do have some doctors on staff. Again, it doesn't matter. There's just no chance in hell that the Chiefs were like, hey, we're so scared of Kyle Van Noy. Keep him in the locker room in case he's going to come back in. The dude's got a friggin' eye injury. There's a 0.00% chance that that's what happened. And he's on a podcast mouthing off about it. Come on, bro. Okay. Scott in the chat says Ravens think they are great. They do. And look, they're a talented team, and they've won a ton of games in the regular season. They're like the 90s Chiefs of this era. Win a bunch of games in the regular season, get home field, choke, lose. That's that, you know, shoes on the other foot. I don't know what to say. Maybe you shouldn't have stolen the Browns from Cleveland. Maybe it's the curse of Art Modell. Okay. Chiefs versus Bengals. Let's preview this sucker. And before we get into like what I'm looking for in this game, and I want to hear from you guys in the chat about what you're looking for in this game. I got some things that I would like to say about the Bengals. And the reason why is because of this guy, as was already alluded to by Slothy in the chat, Cam Taylor-Britt. So the Bengals are back on their bullshit. So Cam Taylor-Britt was asked about Xavier Worthy this week. He was asked what Worthy brings to the Chiefs offense that the Bengals need to be prepared for. This is an easy question to answer if you're a professional football player and you've talked to the media before. It's an easy question to answer where you can heap praise on your opponent, be a professional, and provide some football insight to anybody who might see this interview. Instead, Cam Taylor-Britt says, speed. That's about it. He can run straight, run jet sweeps, and just run straight. He can't do too much else. So that's about it. Feel like you put hands on him. He's only 100 and some pounds. You put hands on him, you'll stop the speed. So basically get hands on him. What are we doing here, man? Like, this dude he has played one NFL game. He's a rookie. He's not even really part of the rivalry yet. And you're trash talking this kid who had a fantastic debut a week ago against did you a favor, by the way, and did you a favor and scored a couple tutties against the team that you're going to be fighting for the division with. Just be a professional. No, not Cam Taylor-Britt, not the Bengals. So, like, when are these clowns going to learn? You know, this is a team that just lost at home to the New England Patriots, a team predicted by Las Vegas to be the worst in football. They lost a journeyman quarterback. They lost to a journeyman quarterback in Jacoby Brissett, who threw for only 121 yards against them. This is a team that last week let Ramondre Stevenson run for 120 yards on them. Ramondre Stevenson did not have a single 100-yard rushing game last year. And do you know why? It's not because Ramondre Stevenson's not a good running back. It's because The Patriots offense is terrible. The leading Patriots receiver in the game against the Bengals was a tight end. It was Austin Hooper, a guy I didn't even know was still in the league. And he put up a scorching 31 yards against Cincinnati. And the Bengals still lost 16-10 with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase playing offense. The Bengals offense was a joke last week against the Patriots. Joe Burrow is coming off a wrist injury, and he is most certainly not back. He only threw for 164 yards. He got sacked 3 times and sported a QBR of 55.8. According to Next Gen Stats, Burrow was pressured at the 3rd lowest rate of his entire career versus the Patriots. And he only averaged 5.6 yards per attempt with no pressure. Burrow spent the entire game flexing his wrist. It was clearly bothering him. Healthy, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I really believe that. But the key word here is healthy. You might as well start calling him Mr. Glass at this point. Now, I think the reason why we're getting all this trash talk, the reason we've had the trash talk in the past, is because the Cincinnati Bengals have a loser's mentality. How on earth can you explain the amount of trash talk this team does despite never winning a Super Bowl? Ever. In their history. The trophy case is empty. Their claim to fame is beating the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game and then going on to lose to a Rams team in the Super Bowl that they were clearly better than. Oh, and some regular season wins against the Chiefs. And it starts with their leader, Joe Burrow. I liked Joe Burrow in college, but since winning that national championship and going to the NFL, he has 100% bought into his own hype. If there is one thing that I am an expert on, it is not being cool. I was never cool. Not in high school, not in college, certainly not now. But it's like Joe Burrow saw that picture of himself, sitting, smoking in the cigar in the locker room after winning the Natty and decided he had to be that guy all the time, no matter what. And as we all know, when you try to be cool, that's when you're the least cool. Patrick Mahomes is cool. And he's cool because in many ways, in the traditional sense, especially when it comes to a football player, he's decidedly uncool. The Kermit the Frog voice, the dad bod, marrying his high school sweetheart and starting a family young and instead of using his fame and power to date as many people as possible. He's cool because of what he does on the field, the way he carries himself on it, and the way he carries himself off of it. He's got a genuine love of Coors Light, for the love of his family, his goofy running style, for his competitiveness and his humbleness despite his greatness. With all he's accomplished, he could easily have a head the size of the ones featured on Mount Rushmore, but he's the same dude he was on day one. The bottom dropped out for me with Burrow when he showed up to the AFC Championship game wearing a t-shirt that said sorry in advance, which ended up being a sorry attempt to look cool in advance of him losing to Patrick Mahomes 2 hours later and securing himself a ticket to his couch to watch the Chiefs win another Super Bowl. That t-shirt was the cherry on top of a week of trash talk from the Bengals about the Chiefs. Remember Burrowhead? Hell, even the dorky mayor of Cincinnati got in on the act. It's like, bro, sit down. You're in charge of a town that elected Jerry Springer mayor and whose biggest culinary achievement is turning a can of dog food upside down on a plate of overcooked noodles. So if you, like me, find yourself wondering why the Bengals are still talking trash about the Chiefs, it's because they have a crappy culture. And it comes from the top. Meanwhile, the Chiefs have been nothing but professional in the lead up to this game. Steve Spagnuolo said, I have a great deal of respect for this quarterback, for their coach, and the way they run their program. He went on to talk about how the Bengals always do a good job offensively of attacking the Chiefs, give them fits. And he even commented on the team's backup quarterback, Jake Browning, and how well he played against the Chiefs last season when Burrow was injured. Trent McDuffie talked about how challenging it is to guard Bengals star wide receiver Jamar Chase, who, by the way, spent the last couple of weeks crying about not getting a new contract and threatening to withhold his services. He had the team so confused about what his true intentions were that his own head coach couldn't tell the media if he was actually going to play against the Patriots or not until pretty much the game kicked off. The Chiefs, they've got the rookie wide receiver Xavier Worthy. He gets asked about the Bengals this week, and he says of Chase, he's an excellent receiver. Just watching him and Justin Jefferson at LSU, big ups to Jamar. Meanwhile, Jamar's buddy is over there talking trash on this rookie trying to make it in the league. What Xavier Worthy said, what Steve Spagnuolo said, what Trent McDuffie said, that's culture. The Chiefs have they've had players talk unnecessary trash in the past, and I've taken them to task on this podcast and on Twitter. Justin Reed, the Honey Badger. But the Chiefs usually squash that kind of behavior quickly. Andy Reid doesn't permit it. Patrick Mahomes doesn't permit it. You don't see Travis Kelce doing it because the Chiefs are winners. They don't generally talk trash before games, and they don't do it after they beat you. Unless you're the Cincinnati Bengals. You see, the Chiefs, they're always listening. They're cataloging. They're using it as motivation. And if you stepped out of line, first they'll beat you, and then they'll rub your noses in it. And who could blame them? Burrow, when healthy, is awesome. Chase is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. I think their head coach, Zach Taylor, does an excellent job. With talent like that, maybe one day the Bengals will figure it out. They'll win a Super Bowl despite all their nonsense. But I'm not sure why anybody outside of Cincinnati would be rooting for them. And if they continue to lose and to fall short, well, that wouldn't surprise me either. All right. I'm sorry, man. I'm just so sick of these guys. And I saw the quote about Worthy, and it really just pissed me off because I'm like, this guy, he's a rookie, man. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, all right, whatever. Maybe you want to needle, you say something about Mahomes or Chris Jones because you guys have, gone to battle and all that stuff. But like, it's just so Bush League, man. It's so weak. It's such a loser's game. The both of these, maybe it's an AFC North thing, it's just brutal. And you're sitting up there talking trash on Xavier Worthy. The hell has Xavier Worthy ever done to you, man? Except get drafted by the Chiefs and then beat the crap out of your rivals last week. It's so Bush League. It's so Bush League. And if that's the way they think, and if that's the way the Ravens operate, like a bunch of crybabies after their games and how we should have won and the refs, neither of those teams is ever going to win shit as long as Patrick Mahomes is around. Maybe they get through. It's the NFL, man. Sometimes, sometimes teams with bad cultures or people that are unsavory, they still win. But you never heard this shit from the Patriots during their dynasty. How many times do you remember Tom Brady going out there and talking trash about his opponents before a game? It just doesn't happen. I can't remember. Does anybody remember the 49ers dynasty? Remember them talking trash? Remember Joe Montana getting out there and talking trash about the opposing team's quarterback? Can you imagine Joe Montana rolling up? Joe Montana is another guy who was just cool. That was his nickname, Joe Cool. And he just went out there and he did it on the field, man. He didn't need to pose. So that's it, man. Shout out to the Bengals for keeping the rivalry hot because, the Chiefs just go about their business, compliment their opponents. They have a healthy respect for their opponents. They want to, you don't think the Chiefs dislike the Bengals as much as the Bengals dislike the Chiefs. You don't think the Chiefs want to beat the crap out of the Bengals every time they play them? Of course they do. But they're not out there talking to the media right now, talking about Burrowhead anymore. No, they let the Bengals talk their mess. They beat them in the AFC Championship game. They danced on their graves. They gave it back to them after they were holding up the Lamar Hunt trophy. And then they went and they won a couple more Super Bowls. It's like that scene in Mad Men where the guy's in the elevator with the other guy. And he's like, I feel sorry for you. And Don Draper's like, I don't think about you at all. That's probably the Chiefs for the most part. They don't think about outside of the week they play the Bengals. They're not thinking about the Bengals. They're not thinking about the Ravens and Lamar. They're thinking about the next game in front of them. And then when they get to that week, they'll gin up any motivation they need. They'll read about the trash talk, and then they'll go try to take care of business. And if the Chiefs lose, if they lost that game against the Bengals, the Arrowhead game, they wouldn't have went out there and made excuses. They wouldn't have said anything about it. They just would have filed it away until the next time they got a chance to take revenge. That's the difference between the Ravens, between the Bengals, between the Chiefs. I see in the chat, Ruben says Patrick broke the Bengals. He did, man. Like, Ruben says Bengals are a bunch of slap nuts. All right. Let's dive into a little bit more about the game here. So Chiefs versus Bengals. The line is Chiefs minus 5.5. Not a touchdown, not a field goal. Pretty healthy line. The over-under is 48. Chiefs are 1-0. Bengals are 0-1. As we've already discussed, the Bengals lost to the Patriots last week. It was not a pretty game. Burrow threw for 164 yards, 21 of 29. Didn't seem to want to throw the ball downfield at all. He got sacked 3 times. This team without Joe Mixon, he's gone. They got Zach Moss now, Chase Brown. T. Higgins banged up. So it was not good. 16-10. They were at home, by the way. I know I mentioned that earlier. At home. Lost to the Patriots. They lost time of possession, 34 minutes to 25. Patriots ran 64 plays. The Bengals ran 48. And the Patriots ran all over these guys. 170 yards rushing to the Bengals 70. So there's your time of possession discrepancy. Only a couple penalties for the Bengals. They did a good job there. And then Cincinnati, they fumbled twice, turned the ball over twice. So, but now look, the Patriots are supposed to be bad, and they are. They do have a pretty good defense. But, I mean, you're at home. Joe Burrow's back. Jamar Chase. Do I need to remind you that you were going up against Jacoby Brissett and Austin Hooper? Austin Hooper, 2 receptions for 31 yards. Tyquan Thornton, 2 for 27. KJ Osborne, Hunter Henry. None of these guys had more than 31 yards receiving. The rookie, Jalen Polk, 1 for 6. Ramondre Stevenson caught 3 balls for 6 yards. How did you lose this game, Cincinnati? How did you give it's just so, they stunk. They stunk. Injury report. Some guys on the Chiefs are banged up, but everybody's a full participant with the exception, and this is as of the Wednesday injury report. When I put together the outline, the Thursday injury report was not out yet, but I don't think anybody backslid. Hollywood Brown's the only guy, was a DNP. He's not practicing. He's not going to play in this game. He was on a 4 to 6 week timeline. Look, they didn't put him on IR. I'd say he's maybe got a shot to play next week. But he'll definitely probably be back by the 4th game unless he has some sort of setback or just didn't heal quite as quickly as they wanted. Remember, if they had put him on IR, he would have had to have missed 4 games. So they didn't do that because they felt like he had a shot to be back. So hopefully Hollywood Brown is back next week. We'll see how it goes. Okay. On the Bengals side, T. Higgins, this is a big one. He didn't play last week. He's got a hamstring. He is continuing to battle that hamstring, hasn't practiced. Defensive tackle Chris Jenkins did not practice. Tight end Tanner Hudson, who was, Tanner Hudson, one of the top receivers for the Bengals last week with 2 receptions for 18 yards, 3 targets. He's not practicing. Linebacker Logan Wilson, not practicing on Wednesday. All he did was lead the team in tackles last week for the Bengals. 12 total tackles, 6 solo, a tackle for a loss, and 3 quarterback hits. So that's not ideal if you're a Cincinnati fan. Injuries already getting to this team as they seem to every year, especially early on. So what players or storylines are you looking out for in this game? I'm going to give you mine. Let me know what you think. If you've got thoughts in the chat, I'll read some of them. Fire off. What are you going to be looking for? Who are you going to be watching? I'm going to run through a list of the people that players that I'm interested in, storylines, things like that. Okay. Xavier Worthy. Top of the list. We talked about him a lot already. Can he do it again? That's what I want to know, right? He did a nice job last week. Got targeted, I think, 6 times. Came away with like 3 catches. Obviously, he had the busted coverage play. He had the handoff for the touchdown. There's not going to be a Hollywood Brown out there. Can he continue to put stress on defenses? Not a bad debut for his first game. So now that he's settled in a little bit, he's in his groove, he's at home again. I'd love to see a little bit more of Xavier Worthy in this one. Let me know what you think in the chat. I'll try to come back to them if I can. How many receiving yards, and I might be asking because I'm interested in getting a little action on the game. How many receiving yards does Xavier Worthy have against the Bengals in this game? Throw in how many catches you think he'll get to. Okay. Travis Kelce held in check last week against the Baltimore Ravens. He had the one big play on kind of the busted play. But other than that, he wasn't a huge factor in that game. Does he get going this week against the Bengals? Travis finished with, pulling up the box score now, 3 for 34. And he was only targeted 4 times in this game. Now, remember, against the Ravens, the Chiefs were feeding Rashee Rice. 9 targets, 7 receptions, 103 yards. They were just slanting the Ravens to death. So again, your teams are going to see that. They're going to try to make an adjustment. Maybe Rashee Rice doesn't have as big of a game. Maybe they creep down, stop those slants. Don't let them do to us what they did to the Ravens. And then Xavier Worthy over the top. Travis Kelce. Isaiah Pacheco in the run game. Some of those Xavier Worthy predictions from you guys in the chat. Jay Ward says 80 yards, 4 catches. Brian Gale says 70 yards, 4 catches. Weston says probably like 4 to 5 catches for like 70 yards and maybe a touchdown. By the way, if you like to bet, if you look at some of the options there for Xavier Worthy, like you can start getting plus odds around like 50, 60 yards receiving. So if you guys believe in this, I'm just saying, I'm not saying be a gambler, but if you believe it. Chad says 110 yards, 6 catches to get back to the trash talk. I hope you're right, man. I hope you're right. And I hope he doesn't say a word after the game. I hope his teammates say it for him. That would be fantastic. Martin says 60 and 3. Brian says Kelce 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. That would be great. Daniel says 4 catches, 110 yards for Worthy, 7 for 80 and a tutty, says Morgan. Dadvet says deep to Worthy, minimum twice. Rice crossing routes, killing them all game. Pacheco down their throats, 100-yard game minimum. Kelce, Gray, killing them at will. We score 40 this week. Oh, I love it. Sign me up. Okay, Isaiah Pacheco. We mentioned him a couple times. You guys mentioned him. I want to know if he can exploit the Bengals' run defense the same way that Ramondre Stevenson did, especially with their defensive line a little bit banged up. Got a couple of defensive tackles not practicing over there. Last week against the Ravens, very good defense. Pacheco, 15 carries for 45 yards. He only averaged 3 yards per carry. His longest run was for 5 yards. Healthy amount of carries for him. He got involved in the passing game as well. Was targeted 3 times, had 2 catches for 33 yards. Ravens didn't want to let him run, but the Chiefs stayed committed, which I like. And you're obviously looking for a higher percentage from him this week. Hopefully the Chiefs can get going. You got new tackle, all that stuff. So let's see how they do against the Bengals. They seemed pretty soft there against the Ravens. Against the Patriots. Let me know what you guys think Pop's going to do in this one in the chat. Tim Johnson says screen passes to P. Ryan. Yeah, I mean, They had one set up. Looked like it would have been a big play there. And be able to call back on a penalty. All right. Will Drew Tranquil is a storyline. Will he murder anyone this week? I don't know if you guys saw my tweet. I was looking at the All 22 film. This was from this week. And on the first play of the game, I think I sent this out Friday night. On the first play of the game, did you guys know they ran outside with Derrick Henry and he got tackled pretty quickly? I'm looking at the film and I'm like, it looks like a Ravens player tackled Derrick Henry. That's weird. And that was from the sideline view. So then I get to the other view, the end zone view. And I was right. Do you know who tackled Derrick Henry on the first play of the game last week against the Ravens? It was Isaiah Likely, our old pal. Do you know how Isaiah Likely tackled Derrick Henry? He tried to block Drew Tranquil, who came down from the middle of the field. And you got to look up this. You got to find my tweet. I haven't tweeted very much since, so it should be easy. @R Patrick Allen on Twitter. I'll try to pin it if I remember after the show. Drew Tranquil hit Isaiah Likely so hard that Isaiah Likely flew through the air a couple of yards, as my wife would say, ass over tea kettle. Great saying, by the way. Hadn't heard that before. Ass over tea kettle. You guys know that one? Isaiah Likely goes ass over tea kettle, takes out Derrick Henry. Can you imagine being Derrick Henry on that play? Like you're running and is all of a sudden like you've got a crease and you're about to slip through it. Your first carry as a Raven. This is it, man. You're going to break one off. King Henry. And Isaiah Likely's goofy ass comes flying out of left field, right field in front of you and tackles you. Hilarious. I'm telling you, I watched that play over and over and over and over again on over the weekend. I just couldn't stop. I couldn't get enough of it. It got 2 million views, by the way, when I tweeted that out. The last I checked, 2 million. People loved it. Actually, I'm going to pull the link and I'm going to get it to producer Richard so you guys can see this. I'm going to drop it in the chat. Boom. There it is. If you're on YouTube, check it out. It's just hilarious. Okay. So, hopefully Drew Tranquil does, he finds another victim this week. We're going to stick on linebackers for a minute. Nick Bolton. We talked a little bit about it on the post-game show. Not great game for Nick Bolton. I'm not concerned about it. That's a tough Ravens team. It asks a lot of the linebackers to the Chiefs. I think Bolton's excellent. He can be a little hot and cold. And it's very easy to focus on his really good games. He has every once in a while, like I don't know, man. Like one of the things I love about Nick Bolton is I think he just has such good instincts. He plays with toughness. He gets downhill. He often diagnoses plays and does a great job. Hard-nosed football player. And then like you'll see a game and it'll look like it's his first time playing football. Like he's just really bewildered and confused. I don't know what it is, but I don't think those games happen nearly as much as the games where he's really great or solid for the Chiefs. So and of course he's the brains out there, right? He's the green dot, and the Chiefs won that game. So bad game for Nick Bolton. It's tough. Am I concerned about Nick Bolton? No, but do I want to see him have a nice bounce back game against Cincinnati? Absolutely. Leo Chenal, on the other hand, was fantastic. I mean, if you guys are interested in sort of like getting a little, I'm not a tape expert by any stretch of the imagination, but you can watch film and if you want and see how a guy does. And if you're a little bit more interested, I'd say NFL Plus is worth it because you get access to the all 22, you get game replays and you can get in there and you can get a couple views. And if you just want to be a little bit more educated as a fan and you're like, man, I really want to know how Kingsley Suamataia did. I want to go back. I would love to watch like all of his snaps. Well, you can do that. And you can watch every play, a couple different angles, zoom in on the guy you want to watch to see how they did and kind of form a little bit better of an opinion. If you're that into the Chiefs, like I am, It's a fun exercise. Check it out. NFL Plus. Not getting paid for that. Leo Chenal was fantastic against the Ravens. He has a chance, I think, to really lock up this Bengals rushing attack. Remember, they don't have Joe Mixon anymore. Mixon was underrated, man. They rode him into the dirt. They gave him a lot of carries. He was excellent for them. I think he really set up a lot of the things that they wanted to do offensively. And they got from Indianapolis, they picked up Zach Moss. So he's on his third team. Zach Moss was really good in relief of Jonathan Taylor last year. And he was pretty good in this game too. They gave him 9 carries against the Patriots. He ran for 44 yards, 4.9 average. He scored a touchdown. He had a long of 16. But they only ran the ball 16 times. 4 of those were Joe Burrow scrambles. That's not what you want to see if you're the Bengals. Guy might gets a stiff breeze. He might break in half. You don't want him running against linebackers. So I wouldn't be surprised if after the way the game went last week, they try to establish that running game a little bit more against the Chiefs. That means they'll probably try to give him a healthy dose of Zach Moss, because Zach Moss is Chase had 6 receptions for 62 yards, which is pretty mediocre to bad game for him. Zach Moss, 9 for 44, like that. He had one of the most successful offensive performances on the whole team. So they may try to get him going, and I think that I don't think he's as good of a back as Joe Mixon, although he's younger. I think Leo Chenal and these linebackers have a chance to really shut down this rushing attack and really make things tough on the Bengals. It should be a much easier task this week than dealing with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. So, let's cut our linebackers a little bit of credit or a little bit of slack for the performance last week. Okay. How does Spags defend a potentially Higgins-less Bengals attack? One of the great things about the Bengals these past few years in this offense was that they've got T. Higgins, they've got Jamar Chase. Those guys are mossing people. They had Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd's gone. T. Higgins might not play. Their second leading receiver against the Patriots was Andre Yoshivas. 3 receptions for 26 yards on 6 targets. Trenton Irwin, he's had a couple of little moments for the Bengals, 1 for 6. So, this is especially without T. Higgins, this is not the same. No Mixon, no Higgins, no Boyd. This is a different offense, man. This is a different offense. And I think the Chiefs could take advantage of that. So how does Spagnuolo deal with it? Does he play it safe and just try to take away? So, Spags likes to take one player away, right? So last week, the Chiefs locked down Mark Andrews. And a lot of times when the Chiefs do that, somebody else can have a really big game because they're just we're going to take away your best player. We're not going to let this skill position beat us. So we would see them do that with the Bills a lot, right? Whenever the Chiefs play the Bills, when they had Stephon Diggs, they do a really good job on Diggs. And then some guy that doesn't usually play that well, like Gabe Davis, would have a huge game. But the Chiefs don't give a shit about that because they just want to win. They don't care about stats. They try to figure out what's going to give the team fits. Spags wants to not let them do the things that they want to do. And then they have to make adjustments, and then they're trying to catch up to what the Chiefs are throwing at them. Last week, you're looking at this. You get Zay Flowers, he had a nice game. But Mark Andrews is Lamar's guy. Chiefs took him out of the game. They're fine, go off Isaiah Likely. Almost bit him. They won the game. They usually do. So what are the Chiefs going to do? It's been harder for Spagnuolo to do that against the Bengals because, one, Jamar Chase is just a freak, right? He's incredible. So he's just hard to stop no matter what you do. And then you still got to deal with Higgins, who's the number 1 receiver in his own right, in my opinion, and Tyler Boyd. It's difficult. So what does Spags do in this game? Does he double up on Jamar Chase? Does he blitz a lot? Is he going to blitz in this game? Let me know what you guys think in the chat. How's he going to attack this one? I think he brackets Chase and tries to take him away. And I think they try to stop the running game. And I think they say Yoshivas, Trenton Irwin, Tanner Hudson if he's out there, Zach Moss, go beat us. I like the Chiefs' chances if they can do that. If they can hold Chase to a similar line to what he had, 60 yards, something like that. Remember, they did a good job on Justin Jefferson last year. Of course, they had Snead. It's going to be fascinating. I expect Joe Burrow is another prediction and storyline that I have in this one to really try to push the ball downfield. I mentioned the stat during my rant at the beginning of the podcast about like his average depth of target was pitiful last week against Patriots. Chase was open. There's a great clip of Chase like running an out route. And as he comes open against man coverage against the Patriots, Burrow's already dumping the ball off. So like you're dealing with Burrow and his confidence in his wrist, rust from not having played football for a really long time, not having his full complement of receivers, not having the Joe Mixon security blanket there. So, and Burrow looked it. He looked uncomfortable, maybe injured against that game, in that game last week. He's not going to be happy with his performance. I thought his throws looked okay, but his wrist was clearly bothering him. But I thought the velocity on his throws, the spirals, looked good. So I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out in this one and tries to get his swagger back and just they're going to be, especially if Higgins is out again, those other guys ain't going to get it done. So they're going to be trying to feed the ball to Chase. They did that last year. I've got Jamar Chase in fantasy, and they stunk last year, and he had the calf injury. And after they got off to that slow start, they just started force feeding the living crap out of Jamar Chase. Screen passes. They might hand the ball off to him. So I expect that, but I also expect Joe Burrow to try to loosen up the Chiefs' aggression and take deep shots and just let Jamar Chase go up and moss guys. He's capable of doing that in double coverage and catching the ball. So the Chiefs got to watch out for those big plays and not fall victim to it. But that's the way I think. I think Spags is going to double Chase and try to shut down the run and make Joe Burrow throw to these other guys. And I don't think it's going to work. Okay. Where's the pass rush going to come from the Chiefs? Chris Jones was Chris Jones last week until the fourth quarter when Chris Jones and everybody else, Chris Jones couldn't get by Justice Hill last week. Now, to be fair, friggin' Lamar was running around like a chicken with his head cut off. So he's a tough guy to tackle. And if you put another guy in between you and Lamar, it's even more difficult. But Chris Jones he looked completely gassed. Remember, he had an injury during training camp. So he's trying to get back in game shape. But I thought the whole Chiefs defense, and again, this is a difficult team to play against in Baltimore as a defender. They run hard. You're dealing with Derrick Henry. You're dealing with Lamar Jackson. You're running all over the field. They wear you down, man. So, and for the first game of the season, when you're not really in that football shape, you haven't played a full game, it's going to take a little bit of time. So hopefully the Chiefs are a little bit better conditioned heading into this one against. We all know Andy runs a tough training camp, but you ain't in game shape until you're playing games. So Ruben says defense was gassed, 100%. I was terrified because I knew we weren't going to get Jones wasn't going to get a sack as deep. He's usually Mr. Fourth Quarter, right? But he was toast, man. He was like me after a flight of stairs. Okay. And where's that pass rush going to come from? Are we going to get something from Mike Dana this week? FAU? Is Spags going to, he didn't do a ton of blitzing against the Ravens. Is he going to send some corners in this one? He likes to mess with Burrow like that. Where are the sacks going to come from? And then lastly, Joe Burrow. Is his wrist still bothering him? Is he going to be able to push the ball down the field? Last year when he had that calf injury, they stunk. He stunk. And then he had a stretch of games, 4 games where he was great. He was the Joe Burrow we know and despise. So we'll see, man. Is it 1 game of rust? Is it 2 games of rust? The Bengals have traditionally, with Joe Burrow, gotten off to a slow start, finished strong, make the playoffs, maybe even make a Super Bowl run. So I'm not writing these guys off yet just because they were putrid against the Patriots. But if you're a Bengals fan and you're not concerned, you should be, because the AFC is competitive this year, man. people are writing the Bills and Josh Allen off for dead, and Josh Allen looked like the guy. Just he can carry that team. You got the Dolphins and all of their explosive weapons on offense. You got Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, who did not look great, but I imagine he'll shake off some of that rust. You got to deal with in your own division, the Ravens. Deshaun Watson looked like me trying to play quarterback in the NFL. He's finished, but they still got a really good Browns defense. You seem to have Cincinnati's number. You got to deal with them. They're a tough team to play. Then you got the Texans out there and CJ Stroud throwing the ball over the place. The Chiefs. I think the Chargers will be better. Like, it's not a cakewalk. You're not playing the Ryan Tannehill Titans or anything. Like, this is a pretty strong AFC with some good quarterbacks. The Bengals can't afford to get off to too slow of a start. They're in a competitive division. Mike Tomlin will find a way to beat them and be in the playoff race, regardless of, who's playing quarterback from him. What's going on? Is there a Bengals fan in the chat? Is it a fake Jamar Chase account? I don't know what's going on out there. All right. Let's get to our final score prediction. Sound off in the chat. Let me know who you got in this one. How's it going down? Who's going to be your Chiefs MVP? I want to hear some score predictions. I'll start you off. I'll give mine, and then I'll read some of yours. Sound good? All right. I thought a lot about this. When I did my season preview show 2 weeks ago, tradition around here, predict every game of the season. I predicted the Chiefs would win a close one against the Ravens, and I predicted that they would lose to the Bengals. My reasoning was I thought that the Chiefs would be without Hollywood Brown, would still be working in Xavier Worthy, kind of figuring some new things out on offense. You got a rookie left tackle. Joe Burrow is an excellent quarterback when he's right. I assumed the Bengals would be right. That was my first mistake. And the Chiefs do have to lose a game probably this year during the regular season. So I thought this one seemed as good as any. Catching them with a good quarterback like Burrow before they kind of really gelled on offense. Well, I'm going back on that. After watching the Bengals come out of the starting blocks and fall flat on their face against Jacoby Brissett, I would be out of my skull to pick them to beat Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Chris Jones and Andy Reid on the road at Arrowhead after that performance. They've got it in them to get it together and make this a fight. And they do always play the Chiefs tough. No T. Higgins, no more Joe Mixon. Burrow's wrist is sore. His hair looks ridiculous. Cameron Britt talking trash on Xavier Worthy. Kelce didn't have a great game against the Ravens. He's pissed. He wants to put up a big stat line, get in the groove of the season. Pop didn't have a great game against the Ravens. I just think the stage is set for the first time in a while for the Chiefs to whoop on the Bengals a little bit. I got the Chiefs in this one 30-21. Cakewalk. Maybe the Bengals get it together. Like maybe they snap out of it. The Chiefs, make some mistakes, stumble. It's all possible. But based on what we saw last week, you saw two great teams in Kansas City and Baltimore go at it. Playoff-like atmosphere. Usually is a playoff-like atmosphere when the Bengals come to town. I don't think that's going to be the case on Sunday. I think the Chiefs are going to take it to them. Let's go to the chat and get some score predictions from the Peanut Gallery. Ozzy says 34-13 Chiefs. My guy Slothy, Chiefs 87. Bengals 0. Love it. Tom Hood says Chiefs 31-20. KCDC 33-16 Chiefs. Chris Jones 2 sacks is the MVP. Ruben's got it 31-17 Chiefs. Dadvet, Chiefs 42. Oh, give me 40 points. I love it. 17. John Satterfield, Chiefs 35-21. Chiefs 45-3, says Daniel Akers. My guy Jay Ward, 24-14 Chiefs. No way. Chiefs 34-17. Weston, 28-13 Chiefs. Loving all this Chiefs predictions. I think that was all of them. So that's it. Chiefs in a landslide, according to the chat. Guys, this has been so much fun. Awesome show. I always appreciate your support, but especially when I'm solo. It's not easy to talk for an hour by yourself. My wife would say different. She would say it's very simple for me to talk for an hour and have nobody listen. But always appreciate the interaction in the chat. Couple just housekeeping notes before we get out of here. If you want to become a member of the Arrowhead Addict podcast community, I'm whooping on these guys in our private fantasy football league. It's we got like a 22 team league going. It's crazy. Just smoked whoever I played last week. I can't remember who it was now. I'll start doing maybe the standings on the show a little bit once we get into it a little bit. But right now, everybody's want to know our 0-1. We do fun things like that. We do member happy hours. We have a private Discord where we watch the games. I'll be in there tonight for Thursday night football. Good one tonight. Miami and the Bills. Going to be checking that one out. See our old pal Tyreek Hill, Josh Allen. Should be lots of points scored in this one. There's lots of ways to support the show. You can become a member, join one of the levels. We have these Ring of Honor guys. They're our biggest and best supporters. They're amazing. But anything you can do, even if you're strapped, and I know a lot of people are right now, you can't support us financially by becoming a member, head on over to Apple Podcasts. You like the show, leave us one of those 5-star reviews. Help me on our road to 400 reviews. Ask me a question. I'll read it next Thursday on the show. Sometimes I miss a week. But Richard keeps on top of me. All right, everybody. I got to get going. Going to grab some dinner. Got to pick up the son from daycare and sit down and enjoy some Thursday night football. It's a new week, y'all. Really appreciate you guys as always. I hope you had fun. Hope you enjoyed the rant. All in good fun with the Bengals and the Ravens. We got to give it back to them. For producer Richard, my name is Patrick Allen. We will be back on Sunday before the game, about 30 minutes before kickoff, with our Chiefs pregame show, our halftime show with Price Carter, and your postgame show with me and Sterling Holmes. We'll break down the action against the Bengals. We'll see you this weekend. Enjoy it. And until then, as always, go Chiefs.